Hey BookTube, it's Samantha, and I'm not quite sure how this video is going to go, but I am thinking about doing kind of a read along with The Institute by Stephen King. Now, Stephen King is hit or miss for about everyone, including myself. I have done a few videos where I talk about books that I've DNF'd from Stephen King, books that I have read from Stephen King, and I figured since he came up with this new book, it would be the perfect time for me to kind of share my thoughts on what I think about this book as I read along. I am going to be very attentive to what I am saying about the book. So this is going to be a non-spoiler video. I really don't want people to watch this video, see me reading through it, and then think, oh, well, she's going to talk about spoilers. I might read the book. It just came out. I just kind of want to share my reading experience of this. Now, I went to Barnes & Noble to pick up a couple of books because the books that I have here, it wasn't enough. I know. But anyway, I saw this book was out and I know that it just came out. I read the interior flap of this because I didn't know anything about it going in. So from what I understand is you're following this kid named Luke, and his parents were just murdered. He was kidnapped and now he's stuck on... Is it on a train? No. It's not a train, but you can't really blame me for thinking that because look at this cover. He's sitting in a room on a train. So I was thinking it was like a moving vehicle that this institute is on, but it looks like it's just a set place. But anyway, so he's at this institute and there are other kids there that have these different powers, telekinesis, telepathy, and basically they're dedicated to learning more about their gifts. So if they do what they're supposed to, they get treats from the vending machine. If they don't do what they're supposed to do, they get brutally punished. So kind of interested to see what this is like. It's kind of reminding me a little bit of Middle Game because it has these kids with kind of supernatural powers trying to get out from under their grasp, but in that case they didn't know they're being studied. It also says here that it's as psychically terrifying as Firestarter and with the spectacular kid power of It. Now, I actually really enjoyed Firestarter. I loved the relationship built between the girl and her father, and it was definitely on the edge of my seat the whole entire time on what was going to happen to them. So I am excited about that part if it does have that similarity. And then with It, kid power, I'm assuming, because there's other kids in the building, so I'm assuming they work together on trying to get out. So that's probably what they're referencing there. But I mean, so I'm excited to see what this book will be like, and I'll just chime in every once in a while when I think there's something notable to share with you guys on my thoughts about this book. Okay, I'm back sooner than I thought I would be. I'm not even on page 1, and we've already started off with 2 Bible verses, which in Stephen King terms, never, not that it's not good, it's just that some messed up stuff is going to be happening. And his 2 references, the 2 Bible verses he's talking about is Samson. And if you're not familiar with that, the story of Samson is that he's very strong, very powerful, and he has his hair cut off, which he lost all of his strength. And so he prayed to God, please let me be able to defeat the Philistines, even after his hair was cut off. And he was given that strength, but in the process of killing the Philistines, he also killed himself in the process. So that's That's reassuring. And then it says here from Matthew, but whoso shall offend one of these little ones, it were better for him that a millstone were hanged about his neck, and that he were drowned in the depth of the sea. Obviously, based off of the synopsis, they're talking about people that are treating the kids badly. Because in that Bible verse, it's talking about how children are innocent and have a great way of approaching Jesus because they're not thinking of how to manipulate other people. They're just purely just doing what's right and caring about other people. And then, according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, roughly 800,000 children are reported missing each year in the United States. Most are found, thousands are not. Interesting. So, not even on page 1, and we're off to an interesting start. Okay, so I am 125 pages in. It's not necessarily a quarter of the way through yet. I am very intrigued by the book. You definitely have your kids, and you obviously don't really know what's going on. These kids are kind of younger. They're in their, like, between 10 to 16. And the main character, Luke, that you're following is 12. So they're not necessarily mature, but they are special. It's really easy to read, which is... that's just very odd to me, because with Stephen King's writing style, sometimes he goes back and forth with saying things from like the character's head and what is actual thought. He usually shows this by putting the thought in parentheses. I don't know if I'll be able to find, like, if I had my books, I could show you what I'm talking about. But usually he has a distinctive kind of writing style, and I guess it's just evolved over time. I haven't read too much of his newer works. I think the newest thing I've actually read from him, I think it was Joyland. I think Joyland is the newest book I've read by Stephen King. I didn't read Elevation because after some time, like, I read the synopsis and I just wasn't into it. And then it wasn't like a horror book at all from what I saw, so I just had no interest in it. But this one has some potential. There's this mystery aspect to it, which I want to figure out what's going on. And it's definitely not a pleasant place. It definitely has an eerie feeling to it. But it's not necessarily horror, like gonna give me nightmares kind of thing. That kind of scary. But it's definitely a page turner for sure. So I almost don't want to put it down, but I kind of want to pace myself through this book, make sure that the information's sinking in, and then I have to go to bed anyway to go house hunting. So I'll be returning to this book, if not tomorrow, definitely Sunday. Day 2 of reading The Institute. I was planning on hitting 125 pages again to get me about 250, but I got a little over to the 200 mark, and then I really wanted to get into Leviathan Wakes because I'm doing a group read on that for this month. But I did read a considerable amount of this, and a couple of things I noticed. The first one, it's really nitpicky, and like, it really doesn't have any impact on my experience of the book. But something I did notice, and this is not spoiler, again, this whole video's spoiler free, but the kid is talking about the punishments that they get in the Institute, and he's talking about how the staff are like slapping them in order to get like the response that they want. And the kid says that psychology refers to that as negative reinforcement, and that I need to clear up, because that's not negative reinforcement, that's actually positive reinforcement. So for all you who are confused, like, slapping is not positive, that's not how it works. Positive means the addition of something. You're adding something to the environment, which in this case, you're adding that contact. Usually the positive reinforcement, you want to add something good, like giving a kid a sweet or giving praise, that kind of positive thing. But negative reinforcement is when you take away something. So, for example, if they do something bad and you don't want to reinforce that behavior, you ignore the child rather than talking to them. So, you're taking away the interaction. So, that's the difference between positive and negative. And that always confuses people up. And I didn't expect Stephen King to, to know the difference, but I just had to say that because it is my due diligence to do so. But the second thing, though, that is having some sort of impact on my reading experience is that while I am getting to know the kids, I'm not as connected with them as I think I should be. And I don't know, it's very easy to read, and I definitely want to know what's going on. Like, I'm almost halfway through, but it's like things are happening to some of the kids, and it's like, well, that sucks. But, like, there's no emotional impact to it. And I think what is exacerbating that lack of feeling is the fact that I'm reading Leviathan Wakes right now, and it is action-packed. Like, right now, something that just happened was that there was this main character that we knew, or not main character, there was this side character that we were just introduced to like 15 pages in, maybe 20 pages in, and then he dies. And I felt more emotional about losing that character than I did about the not deaths happening in this book. So, don't know about that, but I'm definitely going to keep reading because I'm kind of at a little bit of a cliffhanger at the point where I stopped in the book. So I am definitely going to pick up more on that tomorrow, and hopefully I'll be able to shed some light on how I'm viewing the book once we get to the halfway point.
Okay, yes, I am still in the same shirt. It's pajamas, but I have done a little more reading, and I think I'm starting to understand the tone of the book. Because earlier I had mentioned that, these kids, and I just don't really care about it. And I think that's the emotion that Stephen King's trying to get, is that this place, you would normally feel really strongly about certain things, but this place just kind of sucks that emotion out of you. And I'm actually really starting to feel that. So I think I was just kind of missing the tone of the book, and I'm starting to get it now. I'm almost halfway through, and we're definitely building up to something right now. And I think it's going to build up to something epic, but there's no way that what I'm thinking of is going to last for a whole nother half of the book. So I don't know. I have no idea where this is going. I really don't. So I'm really curious about it. I kind of have a new curiosity. Is that the right word? I'm not sure. Like, I'm invigorated to keep reading and figure out what exactly this book is. It's definitely unlike anything else I've ever read before, just because of that emotion that I'm experiencing reading this book. I don't think I've ever read anything that made me feel like this. So that's just really interesting. It's just kind of like a lack of emotion about really horrible things. It's just so weird. It's so weird to describe it, because you would think, okay, lack of emotion, like, then he must not be doing a job, because a book should be invoking emotion. But I think it's the lack of it that is what's making this memorable. It's really interesting. So I'm going to keep on reading. and I'll probably have an update for you later. Guys, I'm having a panic moment. I don't want to give any spoilers away, but my heart has been like racing for the past like 20 pages. I'm like, oh my God. But there's still another half of the book. So I don't think things are going to go well. I want them to go well, but I mean, there's so much book left. It's not possible. And it's going to be bad. And like, I want to keep reading and I don't want to read at the same time. Oh my God. Every time I turn the page, I'm worried. Because you know sometimes how you'll see certain dialogue going on, or like they're just kind of giving you an idea, and then the next page you're like, oh, okay, there's going to be a conversation, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, I don't, every time I turn the page, I'm worried that I'm going to get a brief view of what's going on and then like spoil it for myself before I get there. And oh my God. Guys, it's just, it's intense right now. It's really intense, and I needed a break for a moment. Okay, back to it. Oh my God. I got to the end of the section and I was worried, and I mean, but I forgot about the beginning. I was like, oh, I'm reading the beginning, and then it got into the kids or whatever. I'm like, I'm sure I'm not going to forget about the beginning. But I forgot about the beginning. And now I'm putting pieces together in my head, and I want to keep reading. Okay, I want to keep reading, and I am going to keep reading, but I have to eat. My body is saying you need to eat. So I will eat, but I am definitely, oh my God. I mean, so much could still happen. But this is guys, I'm binge reading this book. Binge reading. I mean, I think it would be impossible for me to finish it today, but I think I could get close. I think I could get close to the end and finish it tomorrow. Oh my God. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I know this is kind of me just fangirling and not talking about what's actually happening in the book, but I don't want to spoil anything. I'm hoping my excitement is not spoiling anything. I don't think it is. I mean, things could still go really, really, really bad. Really bad. Like, okay, eat. I need to eat, and I'll be back. I'll eat. Okay, so I'm now in a point of the book where I really can't talk about it too much because it's probably going to be spoilery no matter how I react. So I'm not going to do any of that. But I do want to mention that Stephen King has a habit of having all of his books kind of revolved in the same universe, kind of along the Dark Tower series kind of thing, where they'll mention certain people or certain areas. And he's done that in this book too. One of the characters mentions Jerusalem's Lot and how there used to be black men there, and they come and snatch you up and everything. So I just think it's really cool how Stephen King does that. And that's not a spoiler for the book either. If you haven't read Salem's Lot, highly recommend it. As I mentioned in my Stephen King video of the books I have read, it's one of my favorites for sure. So it was just really good to see that mention here. But anyway, I'm going to continue. Not going to finish today for sure, but definitely going to get close to the end, hopefully. Okay, guys. So I kind of lied. I finished the book tonight. On Goodreads, I gave it 5 stars. A more accurate rating would be 4.5. I didn't see the ending coming the way that I thought it would be. It seemed like
I was kind of talking to my husband about this earlier today because he saw that I was reading Stephen King, and I was like, let me guess, it has psychic kids in it. Well, yeah. But he was just kind of like listing off all the tropes. And I was like, yeah, it's set in Maine and like blah, blah, blah. But like, this book was different. It still had the build up that I'm used to Stephen King books that I really enjoy. Like, it's just this constant build and build and build and build. And like, you think you have a break, and no, it's just still building on top of it. And I really loved that. It definitely gave me Firestarter vibes, like it said in the book jacket cover, but it wasn't like the same thing as with the relationship between the father and daughter. It was more of that constant chase and trying to figure out, like, okay, well, how are they going to stay on top of it? How are they going to get out? How are they going to do this? It was a lot of that, which really kept it moving through this book. I think sometimes he has this hang up that when he's developing characters, it's kind of sluggish. And I don't mind that part because it gives me that depth of character to really connect with them and understand them. But I feel like he did a really good job with still developing character while keeping the plot moving. Like, I read 60% of this book. 60% of this book in one day. So I just didn't want to get out of it. This was very enjoyable to read. It's about these kids who are desperate and depressed and trying to find hope in their situation. And there's so much that builds on top of it. I guess some people could say that the end was a little too convenient, but I mean, I liked it. I liked the ending. I thought this was a very good, complete book, and there could have been other ways that he could have ended it, and I would still be okay with that too. There's kind of a few different possibilities I was thinking of that he could have gone, and it still would have been a really good book. So I would say I would recommend this for people who like action stories. If you like to have the plot moving, this is definitely something that would be up your alley. I would recommend this to people who, if you are interested with anything involving experimenting on kids, like, that's what this book is. That's not spoilery at all. These kids are being experimented on. So if you like that, you're gonna like this. If you are into, like, not necessarily government conspiracies, but like in Firestarter, it's the shop that is going after the girl and her father, and they're kind of government but kind of not. You've got that in this book too. So if you really liked Firestarter for that, like, basically if you like Firestarter for the most part, you're gonna like this. That was a very accurate comparison, in my opinion. It did say something about it, which, like, the friendships in it, and at the beginning I was kind of seeing that, and I was kind of getting irritated with Stephen King about it, because it's like, well, this one's like the class clown, and this one is the tough guy, and this one's the smart one, and this one's and I was like, why do we have to typecast them? But then as the book went on, they didn't necessarily follow those typecasts. Like, I mean, they definitely still had those attributes. They didn't, like, just disappear, but they weren't being defined by those attributes. So I was fine with that afterwards. That's purely the only comparison that you can make to it, because it doesn't have the weird ass stuff like it does. It doesn't have the scary nightmare inducing stuff that it does. It's purely just like the friendship groups and just these kids that are suffering together and working it out together. That is what's in this book. So if you really like that part of it, you would also like this. I'm trying to think who wouldn't like this book. I'm thinking that if you want like a lot of mind twists and you don't want to see the end coming at all, like maybe you wouldn't think like this is your favorite read. You might think it's okay, but I still think you would enjoy the story. Like it's not meant to be a mystery. I think it's more thriller than anything. If you are a person who thinks like who gets like irritated at like coincidences, you may not care for this. I don't want to go into it because it's spoilery, but that's just something if you're like it just so happens to be this and it just so happens to blah blah blah. If you don't care for that, there might be some aspects of this book that you wouldn't necessarily enjoy. But I mean, I thought it was a good read and I can definitely see myself reading this again. So I would say give it a try, even if you're not like a Stephen King fan. I think this book is pretty, for lack of a better word, mainstream access to reading it. So let me know if you're going to be reading the book or if you have already read the book, and kind of let me know what your thoughts are without spoiling the book. That'd be great. Definitely glad I picked this up, and hopefully I'll have some more Stephen King stuff or maybe some not Stephen King horror coming up for you. Until next time, see ya.